Hello, and welcome to the 8:30 Live. And I guess YouTube's kicking. There it is. Hello, 8:30 Live, blah, blah, blah. We had a great discussion about organizing yesterday, so maybe that'll come up again. We were talking about the protests and the city budget and why the protesters didn't get all that they wanted, or all that we wanted, I should say. It's not like I was not a party to that. And then we spoke about the tactics that could be employed to convince our elected officials to do something that we care about. In any event, I just say thanks to everybody who participated in that because it was really great. With that being said, we've got other things to talk about tonight. And as always, we'll be answering all the questions. But first and foremost, as folks start to tune in, I just want to let people know that apparently the NFL... Oh, hello, Simon. Hello to you as well. Apparently the NFL will now be playing the, quote, Black National Anthem before the Star-Spangled Banner at the beginning of football games. Now, I don't know if football games are starting again. Does anybody know the answer to that? Because I sure don't. But that's the thing that's going to happen when football games start. And as far as I'm concerned, that is, it's literally performative. They are doing nothing to change any of the systemic issues inherent in the league or at large. And they're just putting on a little performance to try and pave over what came before with the blackballing of Colin Kaepernick, the taking of the side by the NFL of people who were against athletes who took a knee. So I say don't buy it. And speaking of not buying performative acts, two senators in the U.S. Senate, two Republicans, one from Wisconsin and one from, I think, Oklahoma, introduced a bill today to change Columbus Day into Juneteenth. So to swap Columbus Day for Juneteenth. Now, you might be aware that lots of folks have been saying that we should change Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day. Great idea. But this idea proposed by these two Republicans is to strike Columbus Day altogether and simply have Juneteenth be a federal holiday. And their rationale for this is that it would be terrible if people got an extra day off in the United States. So in order to keep the number of federal holidays the same, they would strike Columbus Day and insert Juneteenth. Now, whether this would actually pass the Republican Senate is an entirely other matter. And I think the answer is no. But regardless, that is yet another performative act that's come up. And honestly, I think it's nice that people try, but we oughtn't mistake this for real policy changes that will impact people's lives. For example, the Senate passing the House's police brutality reforms, such as banning no-knock warrants, creating a national directory of misconduct, implementing a Juneteenth federal holiday while striking Columbus Day is no replacement for actual changes to how the government behaves and treats people of color. I think people have caught on at this point that some of these things make a difference and some of these things don't make a difference, even though they sound nice on the surface. And I just really hope that folks continue to spread that message. Let's see. Fauci said no football this year. So no football even. So the NFL put out this thing about how they're going to have the Black Anthem played before the national anthem, and they're not even having football games. What the heck? I thought this was at 9 p.m. You're watching a movie. You'll watch this on video on demand later? Okay. Yeah. I had said yesterday that I was thinking about moving the live to 9 because that's when more people tune in. And actually, now that I think about it, I really should do that. So tomorrow, 9 p.m., and we'll see how that goes. In any event, just a few things to cover. One being that Ghislaine Maxwell just got picked up by the feds, which is freaking fantastic. Now, if you don't know who Ghislaine Maxwell is, you should. She was Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, quote, girlfriend. The relationship, I don't really know what the nature of the relationship was, but she is definitely implicated and almost guaranteed to be a party to all of the terrible sex slave and pedophilic and human trafficking that Jeffrey Epstein undertook. So obviously Jeffrey Epstein died while in custody. And so a lot of folks are thinking that Ghislaine Maxwell is the next best thing because she was basically there when everything went down. And she'd be able to rat out all of the other high-powered individuals who were involved and knew about the pedophile ring. Now, personally, I think that's freaking great. And if you don't know why this took so long to take place, I suggest the Netflix docu-series, but just at a very, very high level. Jeffrey Epstein was under investigation like 10 years ago, and he got off because the Attorney General of, was it the Attorney General of the Attorney General, I think, of Florida, where the case was being prosecuted, basically let him off with a slap on the wrist. That person, Acosta, eventually went on to be Secretary of Labor for Trump, and then amid the furor of this, had to leave. And what was the furor? The furor was the fact that the folks who had been abused by Epstein filed suit in federal court saying that the secret deal cut by the Attorney General Acosta and Jeffrey Epstein didn't consult them, that they had a right under the law, which they did, to be a party to those negotiations because they were the victims. And ultimately, a federal judge decided, basically last 2 years ago, that the deal which was struck was completely invalid. And a very important part of that deal was not that just that Jeffrey Epstein would go to federal prison for a very short time, but that all of his accomplices, both named and unnamed, would be completely immune from prosecution. When that was undone, Ghislaine Maxwell suddenly became fair game, and the feds have finally picked her up. She is in their custody, and with any luck, she's going to completely blow the lid off of all of the secretive undercover Jeffrey Epstein crap. We'll see. A lot of folks obviously think that she will also, quote, commit suicide, but hopefully not. Hopefully they take very good care of her, and they might take good care of her, keep her alive, and they get all the information they can, putting away some very, very bad people. Michael Kaplan, are you concerned about undoing your branding as the 830 Live? I hadn't thought about that. What time is it now? It's only 8:41. So I guess we'll see how the numbers go, but am I concerned about the branding of the 830 Live? That wasn't until you mentioned it. I guess it's going to have to become the 9 o'clock Live. Why do you think Trump's ties to organized crime figures has gotten so little attention? Because there's a billion other things that are wrong with Donald Trump and his administration that are more pressing. And, to be fair, the links between Trump and organized crime were brought up during the 2016 campaign, and nobody really cared. That's probably the biggest reason why it's not brought up. Nobody cares, and it doesn't make for good headlines. Ultimately, the things that Trump is being nailed on are the ones which have to do with his current governance of the United States. So coronavirus, and before that, Russia. Do you know that impeachment was this year? Impeachment was still this year, folks. And before, now it's the Russian bounties. And prior to impeachment, it was, I can't even remember that far back. Children in cages at the border. So what is it about his ties to organized crimes that would get people's attention or make them concerned, right? Ultimately, it's not a big thing. And mind you, a lot of the organized crime to which Trump is affiliated is Russian organized crime. They rented out floors of Trump Tower, Russian oligarchs, organized crime, is sort of the same thing, propped up the Trump organization with loans, which is what we'd likely see in his tax returns, to which we can't have access. So all these things have been brought up. It's just that every scandal is replaced by the next scandal. And so there's no sense of continuity nor focus on drilling into these issues, because somehow every next scandal is bigger than the previous scandal. Anyway, you should do it at 9:15 because you'll be competing against Rachel Maddow. When is Maddow on? At 9? And then by 9:15? Yeah, when is Maddow on? Because the numbers tend to go up at around 9 for the live. And then, I don't know. All right. So tomorrow we'll try it at 9 and we'll see what happens. And then if I'm live for 15 minutes, then people will come in after Maddow. I don't know. We'll give it a shot. I'm willing to experiment. But tomorrow's going to be Friday, so maybe at 9 p.m. people will be out. In fact, at 9 p.m. I'd probably like to be out. This is just tough. Maddow's on at 9, but her show's not 15 minutes, right? So won't they be watching for like that full hour or something? I originally planned this to be before Maddow, but whatever. So many things about Trump are so outlandishly evil that at times it doesn't feel believable, even as you say it. Yeah, it's incredible just to think about the scandal and like the number of things that Trump has done, which has just distracted the public from the actual nuts and bolts of governing the United States, which is not happening right now. Now, I only have one more thing to talk about. I was going to talk about remote learning, but I didn't actually read the article. I forgot to read the article. 8:45. Yeah, maybe we'll do 8:45. I don't know. We're going to try 9 tomorrow. We're going to try 9. And then I'm going to eat beforehand. Although what I like to do is just, do this, then eat and veg out for a bit. Although I guess these days now I always end up doing work at about 11:30 or midnight and just doing more stuff. But whatever. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to mention were physics things. One of which we had missed yesterday, which was that CERN has found a new exotic element comprised of 4 quarks. Now, I know that sounds super fascinating, but it gets better. They've never found an element comprised of 4 heavy quarks. So this is an extreme element, which allows us to test our knowledge of the fundamental forces of nature, which create matter. So it's cool. And more exciting to me, today they announced that physicists had observed quantum mechanical anomaly. Well, not anomalies, quantum mechanical behavior in a massive object. So a 40-kilogram mirror experienced, they basically nudged it and nudged the probabilistic wave function of the entire mirror so that it shifted over a measurable amount, a small but measurable amount, due to quantum fluctuations, which is, I think, gigantic. Because you always learn about quantum mechanics in school and how, the quantum nature of reality doesn't express itself on the macro scale. But this is, quantum teleportation is right now, it's a copying of a state and then sending it to another, like a photon or another, I don't want to say particle. Particle is another particle, I guess, an electron or a photon, and sending that state somewhere else, usually through entanglement or something, and then changing something and then it automatically changes over there. If you could manipulate the wave function, so technically all of us exist within a probabilistic cloud that to some extent is everywhere in the universe at once, just with very low likelihood. And so the highest likelihood is just almost infinitely where we appear. If you could manipulate the wave function of a massive object, then you could move it anywhere in space and maybe even anywhere in time. So I just think that that's absolutely fascinating and a wonderful idea. I'm so excited that they've figured out a way, at least at some scale, to impart, or not impart, because we already have these quantum mechanical features, but to manipulate the quantum mechanical nature of macro objects. So super cool. Maybe just go with the Ben Show. Yeah, I could do that. Now, speaking of the Ben Show, I think this will be a very short The Ben Show because I didn't look at the news much today. It didn't seem like there was really much going on anyway. And what should we talk about? I'm basically done. I mean, I did yoga today. It was great. I feel wonderful, but now I'm hungry because I did the yoga. And always when I do yoga before the live, I'm always way hungrier than when I don't do the yoga before the live. And then it makes it harder for me to think. So if anybody has a question or something to talk about, I'll wait 30 seconds. But otherwise, we'll just call it a short night, which is fine. I have nothing against that. And then BY Live. These are all great names for shows. and I guess I'll have to go with one of them. I went back and I renamed all of my 8:30 Live because I'm doing like 8:30 Live episode blank on YouTube. And then I forget what episode I'm doing, so I just put in the number, and invariably I get it wrong. So I had like 10 episodes 50s, and now I know that I'm wrong again. So I think what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll just put the date on it, and I can shift them all over to the Ben Yee show or whatever, because presumably we'll change the times. We'll continue to experiment. Maybe we'll just go to once a week and do like the Sunday Ben Yee Gospel Hour, and we'll talk about what happened in the week, which will give us some news, do an organizing topic, and then read from a foundational document like the Magna Carta or the Declaration of Independence or some nonsense like that. You have 90s curtain hair. I do, only because my hair is wet, but I do right now, yes. Simon Sex says, good night, Ben. Okay, good night, Simon. Good night, Simon. I should sing. I was talking with somebody. I went on my roof the other day, and I met my neighbor. And she's like a long-time East Village resident. We were talking about the bars we like, and I brought up Planet Rose, and she was like, Planet Rose, absolutely. That's a great place. And we talked about karaoke, and I missed karaoke so much. And I want to just get a karaoke machine and go down to Tompkins Square Park and just do park karaoke and let everybody participate. Of course, we need a sound permit, but I think we could do it. I think it'd be a lot of fun. What do you think of Mark Green? He's a quantum physicist. Or those are both question marks. I don't think Mark Green's a quantum physicist. I know he's a professor. Mark Green? Do you mean Brian Green? Brian Green's a professor at Columbia who's written several physics, like pop physics books. And all I can say is I'm not really familiar with his I've never read any of his books. They are like, I know too much. Not too much, but like, I know that the content of a physics book about quantum mechanics that doesn't begin to delve into the mathematics of it. So, I like a beautiful universe or elegant universe or whatever it is. I've never read Brian Greene's work. All I know is that people like what he writes, and his colleagues are annoyed because he gets all of this attention for writing what they consider pop physics, which is not real physics work, right? I also, the person that I've read the most of is Michio Kaku, who talks a lot about higher dimensional physics, and so I read all that stuff when I was in high school. You should interview special guest activists. Okay, we can get into that. Yeah, so now we'll just take show ideas. Like, what do people think the frequency of the show should be? What time would be the best time for the show? What should we do on the show? I would really like to know your karaoke. Get everyone to sing along online. But the thing is, there'll be like a delay, right? So, and also, how would other people sing and be heard, because it's like a one-way channel? Brian Green, Mark Green was a borough president. Yes, that's what I thought. Also, Brian Green has an E at the end of his name, I believe. But anyway, the things I said hold. I knew somebody who studied at Columbia. Did he study at Columbia? Or he knew Brian Green somehow? I can't remember. All I know is that I've not read his book, and he had a show and I didn't watch it. Mom loves Michio Kaku. I'm sure I butchered the name. Just know you. Oh, and an I. It's Michio, so H-I-O, and then Kaku with only one U at the end. But yeah, anyway, whatever. Listen, folks, it's been real, but tomorrow we'll do it at 9. Maybe there'll be more. But who knows? Any event, I'm out of stuff to talk about. Like, it just wasn't a big news day, and we don't have to go for eons every time we have a live. Didn't Mark Green get the nod against Bloomberg in 2005? No. Oh wait, in 5 when he ran the first time? I have no idea. I wasn't involved in politics back then. I didn't get involved in politics till 2000 and well, I mean, I voted in 2004, but I certainly wasn't active doing anything until 2000 and 8 or 9 with Obama. And since then, I've been very much involved. In any event, you're welcome, Simon, and you for tuning in and everybody else for tuning in. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 9 p.m. I hope I don't regret that, but 9 p.m.